Are you ready for a cozy drawing session? Well, that's what we're here to do today. I started this drawing a while back where I just had some bits of paper that I collaged on top of a gold background. It was fairly minimalist. I was just wanted to see what it would be like to paint something with a gold background. I'd never used gold that way before. I guess you could say I was inspired by some of the old icons my parents had in the house when I was a kid. I was baptized Russian Orthodox, but I don't really attend church anymore. But I've always thought that the gold on those icons in the churches are so beautiful, and I think about nature and how we don't really respect it the way that we used to, like ancient civilizations used to, particularly like Native American tribes and things like that. And so I thought by having the gold, it's kind of like elevating the importance of nature and bringing it back to like being as important as like God or religion. So that was the original thought process behind the piece. But after leaving it untouched in my sketchbook for a long time, I was like, I felt like there was more I could do with it, and like it could use more color and more layering. So that's what I'm doing here. The session actually took about an hour and 15 minutes. That was the length of the original recording, but I've sped it up so that this recording will be about 10 minutes. So I have a bunch of different markers, like watercolor markers. I've got gel pens, and I'm painting also over some of the leaves because I wanted there to be more color, and I also wanted there to be more of a leaf shape. I also have some of this, what I call asemic writing, where, well, that's actually the official term. I shouldn't say I call it that, but it's basically a type of, almost like a scribble, but it looks like it's almost real cursive writing, except it's not, like it's not written in any real language. I think I end up painting over that later, but I still kind of liked how it looked. So I don't know, tell me in the comments if you liked it better with the cursive or without it, because I do end up painting over it, as you can see right now. Yeah, I think I'm still not entirely sure if I'm happy with the final result, so I'm curious what people will think. I sort of extended the pattern of the leaves in one of the bits of collage that has like leaves inside of leaves. That's something I play around with a lot. It's like things inside of things, like I think of like Russian stacking dolls. If you're wondering why I keep mentioning Russia, it's because I was born in Siberia. I left when I was 4 years old, but the Slavic influence you can kind of see in different ways in my work. I have another video, an artist talk I gave called Growing Up Between Cultures, where I talk more about that. So here I'm using the gel pens. I've got these really vibrant kind of jewel tones, and I was kind of deliberating, like, do I want to fill the leaves in? Do I want to use the same kind of lines in each leaf, or do I want to like mix it up more? And yeah, that part was kind of tricky, like deciding which colors. I was doing kind of an intuitive approach, which I do a lot when I'm kind of trying to let loose and you know, be more in tune with myself, I guess. Though sometimes that can lead me astray and use some crazy colors that don't always go together. Yeah, so it's coming together. It's definitely a very compressed timeline. I've also used brushes here. I've got like some smaller brushes. This is a pretty small sketchbook. It's like 8 by 10 inches, so it's all on a fairly small size. And unfortunately, I recorded this in a vertical perspective, so it was a little tricky cropping it and getting it to a good size for the screen. But I did use the cinematic view, which I think makes it a little bit sharper, though it does seem to occasionally blur out on me, which is a little annoying. Here I'm using a bit of carandash, which is like a water-soluble pastel. I've actually started keeping track of which supplies I like to use the most, which is a mixed media artist. It's kind of important because you end up using so many different things, and I'm really grateful for the other artists who've shared their like Notion templates and how they organize things for their work. So I made a Notion table that is tracking all the different supplies I've used, and I'm ranking them by like, do I like them, do I dislike them, or do I like really, really like them? Are they like my favorites? So I think gold is definitely gold paint is like up there with some of my favorites. But oil pastels, for example, are a supply that I really don't enjoy using, even though sometimes it looks like I'm using oil pastel. Like sometimes it's hard to tell when the piece is finished what material I used. Like sometimes I use hard pastel, but then I go over it with gel medium and it kind of looks like it was painted, but it wasn't. But as a kid, I really liked to draw with gel pens, so bringing them back into my practice has kind of brought up some joy and made me a little happier just to incorporate them. You have to be careful though with gel pens, because if you use them on top of wet paint, it can ruin the pen, and sometimes I'm a little messy with that sort of thing, so I have to be a little more careful sometimes not to ruin my pens. So you can see it's starting to come together. There's some little leaves. I decided that the background was a little too samey, so I came in with some smaller leaves that I drew the outlines with water-soluble graphite. And now I'm coming in with more layers. I decided I didn't really like the samey like lines on all the leaves. I liked more of having the colors, so I end up kind of covering up some of the patterns that I put into the leaves before. And I think in the end I'm happy I did that. Here I'm actually like outlining each leaf in like a slightly lighter yellow color, so they kind of look like they're glowing even within the gold background. And now I'm using some white marker. And here's a big change. This was a pretty bold move on my part, to turn that white leaf blue. Now you can still actually see some of the leaves underneath, because that piece of collage paper has leaves on it. So the nice thing about the watercolor marker is it's a little bit transparent, so you can still kind of see those patterns. As I wanted to preserve some of that collage, I didn't want to completely cover it up. It's like, what's the point of using collage if you paint over it in an opaque color? Then you can't even really tell that there was collage there to begin with. So yeah, lots of layering, lots of color, but I'm almost done now. I'm getting to the end, so it was definitely one of the longer pieces I worked on in my sketchbook. Sometimes I feel like I work in my sketchbook too long and I make things more like finished paintings. I regret that I did it in my sketchbook. But the longer I've been painting, the more I've decided that I prefer painting on paper. So I probably should just get like larger pieces of paper, and that way I can have like bigger pieces instead of the ones in my sketchbook. But I'm also limited by my space. My studio's in my living room. It's just a small table. Well, I don't want to say small table. It's a normal table, and it has grown, and I've started to take over the living room with my art supplies. So can't say I'm completely innocent there, but All right, I think we're near the end here. It's about to show my final product. And yeah, leave a note in the comments what you think here about the final result, because I'm really curious if this is an interesting piece, if this is the direction I should keep going in, because I really love nature, and it's inspiration for me. So there it is. Tell me what you think.